Pulse chain, Pulse chain is going to change supply and demand because of price elasticity. When you have something and you change the price of that thing, that affects two variables. It affects the suppliers. So in this case, if you have a cryptocurrency or a platform or whatever you want to call it, and the price changes in one direction or the other, the supply changes, meaning the people building on top of it, as well as the demand side. We're going to talk about both of those in relation to Pulse Chain in this video. But first, if this is your first time here, what's good? My name is Sam, and for those of you who are returning, it is good to freaking see you. Now, Pulse Chain hopefully will be out later this year. And as you go through and you look into Pulse Chain, you see that the cost, or I should have pulled up the test net, right? Test net is out right now. The test net shows less than, I think it's 0.000 cents, right? So it's a fraction of a penny to actually transact on Pulse Chain. Think about that versus Ethereum. Now, we'll lay the groundwork and then we'll get into the elasticity of demand and supply with Pulse Chain because this is fascinating. When we take a look at Ethereum to understand how price elasticity affects it, I think of Tesla. As you take a look at the strategy Tesla has taken to completely dominate with what they're doing, they went from high-end market, right? So you're selling something, originally around $70,000, now over $100,000. The number of people that are just capable of purchasing something at that price is smaller, right? Now, the Model 3, right? The cheaper Model 3, that's around 50 to probably, they just raised prices probably around 60 grand, 50 to 60 grand, depending on trim and whatnot. The number of people is greater who are capable of purchasing the Model 3 at 60,000 than the Model S at $110,000. And it's not a one for one. So say if it was 120 for the Model S and 60 for the Model 3, and you cut the price by 50%, you don't get a 50% increase in demand. You get more than a 50% increase in demand. And that is just in relation to demand. So Ethereum, they have transaction costs that are pretty expensive, right? Like it's far more expensive to do that than use a bank in a lot of circumstances, right? To just do any transaction, it's going to be 10 to 20 bucks. And it could be more when the market's more congested or like when there's a bull run. So when that happens, if Tesla went through and raised their prices of a Model 3 from 60 grand on average, say that's the ASP, the average selling price. So say they raised that to $70,000. Well, the demand is going to decrease, but it's going to be now in the circumstance of what's happening, right? You can see 120 down to 60, how that's going to increase demand by more than 50% by that price drop, just because the market at 60,000 is substantially greater than the market at $120,000 ASP for that expensive of a vehicle. But when you go in the opposite direction, you can also have price elasticity where Tesla still has their demand continues to increase, right, because of macro factors that are going on right now. So they can raise their price and still get more demand at this point because the product is so much better than everybody else's out there. Well, I don't know enough about Pulsechain. They don't have any white paper or anything like that to get a better idea, or at least none that I've seen, right? But effectively, it's supposedly a copy of Ethereum, right? And if the transaction costs are substantially less, then how is that going to affect demand and supply? And also the TP here, that's toilet paper. I mean, nah, just kidding. That is the throughput, because throughput's also supposed to increase. So this is going to affect demand and supply as well, but to a much lesser degree than price will. So I wanted to put that in there, because think about if somebody is, say, doing arbitrage or trading of some sort, or those are the first examples to come to mind, but I'm sure there's plenty of other examples where people don't want to wait, you know, a couple minutes or whatever to have a transaction go through. If that can happen much faster, right, then they're more likely to use that just because it happens faster, right? If somebody went to a fast food place and it took, you know, 15 minutes to get food on average at a restaurant, right? And then new restaurants opening up and the throughput of that is 4x, right? So it goes from, say, 16 minutes down to 4 minutes. Yeah, it's going to increase demand, right? But when we look at this, is so for Pulsechain, right? How they measure elasticity is you have a 1 unit measure of price. So you're going to have the delta in price, the change in price, and how does that affect supply or demand? So down here at the bottom, we got supply, and then we have a demand. Let's first take a look at supply. Now, when we're talking about Pulsechain, what do we mean by supply? Well, if Pulsechain is a copy of Ethereum with some changes to it, then Pulsechain, the supply for Pulsechain is not Pulsechain or PLS itself. It's the people who are going to be building on top of that. So we're going to have a very interesting thing happen here. Very interesting. If right, there's a lot of ifs here. You know, we're playing conjecture, but I think that could be the case. So let's actually look at the more realistic one, because this is what's actually happening. The price is going to be coming down. So how does that affect suppliers? Well, suppliers in this case are those people who are going to be developing on top of Pulsechain, and if it is not as costly to do transactions, there's more things capable. Now let's go back to that Tesla example to get an understanding of this. So if you could supply a Tesla Model 3 for, you know, $15,000, right? And then you could sell it for 30, demand would increase, right? But the better way of looking at that for more accurate, at least from the supply chain standpoint, is if the supply of batteries dropped by 50%, the people who could make profitable EVs would increase, right? Right now, there's the cost of batteries, or that whole process is the manufacturing process. There's a lot of like OEMs who just don't have any fucking clue what they're doing, but the number of suppliers would drastically increase. In this case, you have a 1 unit drop right here in price. How does that affect the supply? Well, if you come up like this, right, you go from here to here, and you get to see that this space in between here is substantially larger than this space. And we don't know what that is actually going to be, right? We don't know the actual magnitude of the effect on supply. We just know that if there's going to be certain use cases that $13 to do a transaction makes that crypto idea that these developers or people have to put together useless. Like, you can't do things at certain prices. It just doesn't work. But when you do drop that by over a factor of 10, that opens up the doors to all these different unique ideas that will be able to take place. Demand. the same thing happens when you have price of something drop drastically. Like, remember when, and I don't own a TV, I haven't owned a TV for 13 years, so my data on this could be off for quite a while, or I'm just not in the market and I don't own televisions, never have, right? Or haven't, at least for 13 years. Um, Back in 2001, a LCD TV first came out, and for maybe a 30-inch was like $2 grand or something. And now you can go to Walmart and you can buy, a 50-inch LCD TV, flat screen that's, an inch and a half thick for $600 or something along those lines, right? Which opens up the market to more people. So you have a better product, right? We're going to have a lot more suppliers of products, which means that the people who have shitty ideas also get to make them, but then there's going to be more people who have good ideas that are now capable, who can take those shitty ideas and improve on and continue to iterate to make them better. So the supply of different things is going to be increasing. Demand, in the way I'm thinking about it, would way, like, it would be something, this line right here would be more something like that, right? Where it's massive, meaning a price change from here to here, right? Because we're going down by a factor of 10, means you go from here with demand to, like, just say it was there, right? There's going to be a fuckload more in terms of the demand now, because of there's going to be so much more beautiful, awesome projects that are coming out that are capable, that are just possible. Because same thing with the battery supply for vehicles, right? Tesla has the cheapest battery cost because they got in way before everybody else did. But what if everybody else had the same cost and that was available to the entire marketplace, the cost of battery production? Then, then not only are you going to have all vehicles be EVs very, very quickly, right? But you're also going to have cool use cases that we can't even think of, like all lawnmowers, right? Imagine having lawnmowers instead of during the summertime. It's super loud outside from people mowing their lawn, and not that it's super important to me, but I know some people care about it. The environmental impact from lawnmowers, there is no like regulations on those, right? Which I don't think there necessarily should be, but allowing a supplier of tractors to have the same cost for batteries would mean that there would be battery operated lawnmowers. You're going to have battery operated leaf blowers. You're going to have battery operated boats. And when the cost comes down low enough, or the energy density of the battery gets up high enough, we're going to have jets. Like, imagine getting onto a jet and not having it be really loud, right? Because at some point, you're going to have the same thing happening with blockchain, right? Whether it's this project or a different project, right? Where the energy density of batteries it continues to creep up over time. At some point, that's going to cross over the energy density of jet fuel. When that happens, that will allow like giant commercial planes to be battery instead of jet fuel. And that's going to open up additional doors for different use cases. The same exact idea is happening here in crypto with Pulsechain, right? The cost for Pulsechain is dropping relative to Ethereum by a gigantic magnitude. Ethereum is the most popular like platform to kind of, from adoption standpoint, to build off of. And we have throughput increasing by a factor of 4. We have the price dropping by over a factor of 10. And this is, I think the throughput's actually going to be the issue. So I don't know if there's going to be a way to affect throughput in the future. Like, I don't think a 4x in throughput is going to be worth that's gonna be the bottleneck. Whether it happens in 6 months or it happens in the next 2 years. Like throughput is going to be the issue. Like you can't bring on the world's population at only a throughput of 4x. Like hopefully that 4x can have another couple doublings or triplings or 10x's of itself to allow for more throughput. And hopefully we can continue to see the transaction cost come down with future iterations of Ethereum, whether it is with Pulsechain or with a different project or something like that. But the magnitude of these effects, I don't think enough people are talking about. This is going to be monumental in terms of the price impact with this. From a supply chain standpoint, number of people building projects, because it's going to open up doors to cool use shit that we're not even thinking of. From creative and resourceful people that are be like, oh damn, now that the price is so much cheaper, I can build this thing that provides a utility, but it only provides a utility at transaction costs that are less than $5. Right? So now that on this transaction costs are less than $5, then that project becomes useful and capable and economically feasible. Right? And there's other people who don't want to get into crypto because it's too costly, or they would do more in crypto if it was not as costly. So this is going to be very interesting when this comes out. I would be interested to hear what your thoughts are. We have a couple talks on Pulsechain as well. So if you want to check those videos out, go through the channel, look at them, and a couple other projects. If you found this video interesting, take a second, share it with somebody else who you know is in a project or who is learning about Pulsechain. And if you like this type of content, maybe you should subscribe, press that bell notification, jump over to Twitter and say, what's good, Sam? Do you think about this? There's a link down below for that. And if you like fitness related stuff, there should be an icon coming up here, and you can check out the fitness channel where we talk about the same types of things, but relative to peptides, shit that like nobody else knows about, and all sorts of cool compounds or drugs or things that you can utilize to improve your health from a biohacking standpoint or whatever it is that's interesting. Now, appreciate you. Talk to you soon. Peace.